Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. Well, what's new under the sun today is that the stock market is down. The futures are down. Yesterday was a holiday. The markets weren't open yesterday. And of course, the day prior to that, we were down 800 points on the Dow Jones. This morning, the Dow futures are down 452 points before market open, of course. The European stock markets are also down significantly. We have a number of factors causing that. Look at this. The DAX is down 283. The FTSE is down 170. The CAC is down 118. And so significant issues. Dow falls over 400 points, or set to fall over 400 points as market sell-off continues from basically Tuesday. There's a number of reasons for this. We're going to get into them. One of the issues is that the CFO of Huawei was arrested in Canada on the request of the United States, and this is, of course, a Chinese company. U.S. basically says that Huawei could use their devices to spy on, U.S. citizens, American, Canadian, any citizens of the world, really. So they've arrested the CFO. Huawei CFO arrest sends global chip stocks plunging. Arrest of Huawei CFO shows the gloves are now fully off, says Eurasia Group. So you've got this battle going between U.S., China, tariffs, equalization of a trade. And this continues on, and this is a real concern. Honestly, to me, it almost looks like, you can see that. It almost looks like to me like Trump is slowly trying to bring the markets in a downward direction so that when a crash happens, it's not going to be as bad as it could be. That's, with all the moves he's making, he seems to be doing that. He seems to be making the moves that continue to put the stock markets on edge. It's very volatile right now. And I believe that an economic collapse is kind of what kicks off end-time Bible prophecy. And we are getting very close to it. I think we're within a year of an economic collapse. I don't think it's going to happen this year. But boy, things on the stock market are very volatile right now. Let's take a look at a bit of the details here. This is ZeroHedge.com. China outraged at arrest of Huawei. Warns it will take all measures, quote unquote. What does that mean? Economic war, potentially? So much for a trade truce between China and the U.S., or a stock market Christmas rally for that matter, it says. Shortly after news hit that Huawei CFO Meng, also deputy chairwoman and daughter of Huawei's founder, was arrested December 1st, or right around the time Trump and Xi were having dinner in Buenos Aires last Saturday, and faces extradition to the U.S. as a result of a DOJ investigation into whether Chinese telecom giants sold gear to Iran. Despite sanctions on exports to the region, China immediately lodged a formal complaint. Protest publishing a statement at its embassy in Canada and demanding that U.S. and its neighbor, Canada, rectify wrongdoings and free Meng, warning it would closely follow the development on the issue and will take, quote-unquote, all measures to protect legitimate rights and interests of Chinese citizens. And does part of this mean declaring economic war? I believe it absolutely does. And so this arrest was made in Canada. So look at this. Carnage continues. U.S. futures flash crash after Huawei CFO arrest. Things are escalating, the article says. I believe they are. I think we're going to see some massive gyrations in the economy. I think it's time to prepare. If you're not prepared, I think these are the kind of last days to prepare before an economic collapse, which may not come until the end of next year. I don't know exactly. All I know is that these things are warning signs. These are signals. Most people are still awake, but people are starting to wake up. You need to be prepared. You need to get food and water. I know I'm looking at what I have, what preparedness I have, what state of affairs we have. Should the power go out for extended periods of time? Should the economy crash? Remember, if the economy crashes, food truck delivery to grocery stores will stop, at least for a while. There will be massive unrest. There will be people starving because grocery shelves are going to be empty after probably the second day of a declared economic collapse and lack of movement of um, transport trucks to grocery stores. What do we have after that? We start having people getting desperate. They're starting to get violent. Their houses are getting cold because maybe the electrical grid goes down because the power company isn't getting paid for anything, and the power company isn't able to pay for the power they're getting from elsewhere, etc. And so we have people getting desperate in terms of shelter and food. So this is a time you need to be prepared and kind of understand what you have, where you're at, how long can you survive on little, because this could happen at any time. It may not come for a year, but you can't wait till it happens and then get ready, because at that point it's too late. You need to be ready now. And these are the warning signs. These should be flashing signs, in the back of your eyes, saying this is coming sooner and sooner. It's going to be bigger and worse than we could ever imagine, and it's going to take all Western powers, I believe, out of any significance in history in the last days. I believe that's exactly why we don't see Western powers named in any significant fashion in end-time Bible prophecy, because generally the strength and ability has been taken out by way of complete and total worldwide economic collapse, which takes out all the democratic nations effectively, and the communists, the military dictatorship ruled countries are, of course, are left standing. They keep going because they're ruled by fear. But you have all the democracies, all the westernized nations, basically just trying to feed their own population, trying to deal with unrest, civil unrest, and possibly civil war in their own countries, to the point where they're not paying attention to what's happening in Israel. They don't have the the will or the resources to take part in Ezekiel 38 or to back up Israel in that point in time. The article goes on here. In a statement on its embassy, China says that it firmly opposes and strongly protests Canada's arrest of a Chinese citizen who didn't violate any U.S. or Canadian laws, adding that the arrest, upon U.S. request, severely violates human rights. So China's upset about this. And we could start seeing some hackers coming in. There's a warning of it as well. That hackers could be coming down, Chinese hackers, basically in retaliation a little bit for this as well. And of course, this is speaking of the Marriott Hotel attack intrusion, but what could come out of this as well. So the update here, Huawei in a statement said the arrest was made on behalf of the U.S., so Meng could be extradited and face unspecified charges in the Eastern District of New York, it says. So, and this has caused, obviously, the stock markets to plunge. Having a day off to watch Bush's funeral, drifting modestly higher before the early close, reports of the arrest of Huawei's CFO at the request of U.S. authorities have sparked carnage at the reopen on extremely heavy volumes. Look at that image there of the dump there. Significant events. What else do we have going on in the world that is causing volatility? Well, check this out. This is oil. Crude, WTI crude, is going downwards, and that's bad for the economy generally. That's good for the local person, the person who's filling up his car to get to work. But that's bad generally for the economy because that's going to limit output. Oil producers are going to start closing shop and shutting down operations when oil gets basically too cheap. As if plunging equity futures were not enough for traders to worry about, this morning in the past 2 hours, oil, which is rebounding heading into this week's 2-day OPEC meeting, tumbled sharply, dropping as much as 5%, sliding as low as $50, less than $1 from this year's low of $49.41, from above $53 per barrel. And this is just as Saudi Arabia said producers were working towards a deal to cut output that could fall short of market expectations. So they're trying to cut output basically to increase the price of oil again. That's what Alberta is also doing in Canada, looking to basically slow down exporting so that they can get the price jacked back up there simply by supply and demand. If you provide less supply, and the demand stays the same, that means the price of oil is going to increase, and that's exactly what they're doing. Saudi Energy Minister Khalid told reporters ahead of Tuesday's critical closed-door meeting of oil ministers in Vienna that OPEC and allies outside the cartel, including Russia, were still looking towards reaching an agreement by Friday. Falah said Saudi Arabia's preference was for a sufficient cut, but not overly large, adding that a 1 million barrels per day would be adequate, but noting that there is no deal yet. So they're looking to do this, so this is putting more weight on the stock markets. The Dow futures is down 410 as we speak. This is continuing to go up and down. Sell-offs continue. Sell-offs could be down to machines that control 80% of the stock markets, and likely, I think that's a very likely candidate for what is actually going to be the major cause of the worldwide economic collapse. The computer programs will basically start going nuts and fighting against each other in the economic collapse, and no one can stop the computer programs at that point in time. Now, one assumes they have checks and balances, but how low does it go? And whose program goes the lowest, has the lowest checks and balances to be able to sell off what they can and get whatever money they can out of it. So we got a significant situation going on here. There's tons of other economic news in the world, geopolitical issues going on. The stock market is the big news today, and I would suggest to you that an economic collapse is the next thing on the prophetic horizon worldwide, globally. I think it's what kicks us into overdrive and plunks us right into end-time Bible prophecy and really enables Isaiah 17 and enables Ezekiel 38 and 39 to actually occur. Because in those ones, in Ezekiel 38, 39, you basically have other nations around the world saying, asking Russia and the alliance, the Gog-Magog alliance, why have you come why have you invaded Israel? To take a spoil is the question. But they're not actually doing anything about it. They're not actually standing up to the Gog-Magog alliance. They're not coming to the rescue of Israel, and that's part of God's plan, because God wants Israel to call upon Him, and He will come back and save them. He doesn't want the U.S. to save them. He's using that as a way for Israel to recognize God effectively and to see His power. So God's using this, but it does mean that Western powers and most of the nations of the world are unavailable, unwilling, or absolutely incapable of actually coming to the defense of Israel. We also know in the last days that all countries will hate Israel, all people will hate Israel, and so that's another side of it. And boy, we are getting close to economic collapse, so how much closer is Isaiah 17 and Ezekiel 38, 39? Guys, this is a warning. Be prepared. Make sure you know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. He's coming soon, and I think these markets, the volatility of the markets, should be a warning to you to get ready. Gold and silver may not be worth much for very long, because ultimately it's going to come down to who has the most food on their shelves, and that's going to be the most valuable commodity at some point in time. So you need to kind of hedge your bets on multiple fronts. We could come through the economic collapse, move into the mark of the beast system, at which point you could probably translate your hard assets into the new currency. And so maybe gold and silver are worth it then. Maybe your house is going to be worth it as a hard asset to transfer into the new currency system, whatever that is. Key point is that you need to have those hard assets now prior to the economic collapse, because everybody is going down. Everybody's going to go bankrupt. The whole world's going to go bankrupt. And it's going to be a Mad Max scenario, pretty much. The only chance is if they can control it and slowly bring it down. But when a fiat currency resets, it's very hard to actually control any of the crazy that goes on. You look at Venezuela, you look at Portugal and Italy, and other countries that are going through economic collapse, economic calamity. Turkey is another one who is going through it. Venezuela, is now implementing a mark of the beast system of their own, an electronic, social credit system. They've implemented cryptocurrency for the country as a whole. So these are the things. These are the countries that are going through this experience, probably ahead of us by a couple of months. But North America and all Western countries will be going through the same. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll leave it there. Please share. Please subscribe. Please support the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.